So, we go again. Number 50, the Darkness to Light Godcast. Welcome back, and thank you those who are joining me again. And this one, again, I seem to be saying every week just now, there's no real theme. There's certainly no real plan to what I'm going to talk about or what I release. Somebody asked me this week, somebody that's hoping to help us with the marketing side of the Vortex and the intention to get it out to the world. And one of the things they asked was, can you pre-schedule what you're going to talk about and what you're going to do, so we can get some sort of a lead time into it, or get in front of it a wee bit. And that's never been the way that this has worked for me. It's always kind of where I'm at this time when I'm talking, and the idea has always been, these recordings, to record them and to get them out there and leave them as a record, and documentation of this work and what it is that I'm doing and what I've done. That's one of the big kind of driving goals, So I remember a while back I did a Godcast, and the man that was who hosted me was basically saying, you'll get there, as if, don't worry about it, everyone's going to be fine, it'll start to pick up and the numbers will get bigger and better, and it's never been about that for me. I understand the nature of this work, and I suppose the subjects that I'm talking about, which are all kind of spiritual based. It's all solution based, and there's not a lot of drama. There's really no drama in it. I have been a wee bit dramatic in the past, and that didn't go too well once or twice when I kind of called some people out. Interesting, when you look at the numbers, as I was shown, I don't really spend any time, never watched these, haven't watched one, even the clips and all that, but I was being shown yesterday by one of the team, the numbers and how we're looking at the things that have been successful in terms of the biggest reach. And it's always the ones with drama. It's always the ones where I was calling somebody out, and it's interesting to see where I was at that time, and good and bad, when I look back on it and kind of think about where I was and what I was talking about, those specific clips in particular, and as always now I'm in a different place, and it continues to evolve and keeps moving forward, and excited for this one. Number 50 is significant. The number 50, and I was watching it kind of coming up, kind of creeping up on me, and I'm thinking about, this really should be something quite significant. And the title itself isn't really significant. It was significant, but it's not as significant as I would have liked it to be. But then, as always with this, when you just get out the road of it and you allow it to come through you, and you kind of the inspiration and the information, the way that it seems to find its way to me. When I put it all together and it unpacked itself as it did on Sunday morning, then the title of it and the theme behind it couldn't be any more significant. So really blessed again to be inspired, to be in that flow state of inspiration, and excited for this one. This is really relevant, and you find me today. This is day 2 of a 5-day juice cleanse, which I may extend. I said 5 days in the beginning. This is something I've done quite a few times in the past. I'm on day 2 just now within the Vortex, within the community. Over the last few weeks there's been kind of people talking about the cleanse and the how good they felt on the last medical medium cleanse to heal. We've done them, I think that's twice we've done that now. I've certainly done it twice this year. I think the group's done it twice as well, and which is a lot of work. It's a lot of preparation, and it's food as a medicine, and it isn't easy in terms of the preparation, and especially when you're busy, especially when there's stuff to get done, it can be a wee bit challenging. And it kind of got me thinking, really driven by the group, again, the inspiration within the group. Thank you all, those who are playing daily. But it got me thinking about, what's the easiest way to do it. And this is really, really simple, and it is easy. But maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it is easy, but it's not simple. That was my experience in the past. Different just now, very different 2 days in and how I'm feeling just now. So it's a juice-only cleanse, either veggies or fruit. And for 5 days, you basically have nothing other than that. I process as well. I just processed a melon this morning. So you can process it. Melon's obviously, 80% water, or maybe more than that, some of them, round about that anyway. So just stick that in the Vitamix food processor and just letting the dates thing and blitzing it up. So you're drinking it as a juice. And I can't tell you how good I felt yesterday. I really did in the afternoon. I did a wee video talking about the cleanse. And one of the things I'm going to be doing more is going back to doing more videos, more kind of which I really like. You know, the daily content. I was live every day for about 2 years once, right at the beginning when I was training within the cold exposure stuff. Before it was a thing back at the start of 2017, then probably into 2018 is when I started it. Maybe towards the end of 2017 I started doing the live videos with the intention of helping people, you know, getting about this, you know, these life-changing practices that I was doing myself at the time, the breath work and the ice exposure, the cold exposure. And I would do live videos every day, walking up and down the river, down at the Molesey Bridge, and I loved that. And then I got away from it probably a couple of years ago. Very often I would do the Facebook live stuff, and I think they're all being taken down now unless you save them, which to an external source, which I haven't done, which I maybe should do just to record them and look back and see where I was at some point. I always kind of cringe when I see myself on the screen. I don't like it. There's probably half a dozen photographs of me over, you know, the last, whatever, I've been with my wife the last 35 years. And there's tens of thousands of them, especially the digital format. You know, there's probably 50,000-60,000 photographs that I've got. I'm always capturing the moment, but I've never really been that comfortable. I don't really feel. It's very interesting, the whole thing, and this is an extension of that. It's really interesting now how comfortable I am doing this, and that just because of the intention behind it. Before I go in here, you know, I'm doing my qigong and I'm moving and I'm breathing. I'm looking at what the list is, what I'm planning to talk about. But there's obviously kind of pre-match nerves. And the way that I get beyond that is by, you know, basically remembering why I'm doing it. What's the intention? What's the reason? What's the why? As always, you know. So that's the bit that gets me in front of the camera. And I think, you know, always I give my best shot. That's the way that I make peace with it. I give my best shot. I always do it in one take, you know. So I'm basically speaking from my heart. You know, the idea is to hopefully forget about the camera at some point, which is pretty difficult. And just try and stay in that flow state. It's a lot easier when there's no camera there. It's a lot easier when I'm doing classes or whatever it is, you know, the kind of the coaching in that way. But, you know, this is an absolute necessity. It kind of feels just now, especially the challenges we face within the world, and this being the solution. I do feel, in fact I know, that makes everything better. So day 2 of the cleanse, feeling great, 5 days to go. Going to extend it possibly, see how we go. The last time I got to about day 7 and I could like hear the grass growing. My energy was so switched on. One of the main reasons obviously gives your body a break. Your digestive system and all the systems of the body. There's something, you know, when you take the food in and your body's trying to convert that to energy, you get an exchange. This is why people that eat heavy, dense, like basically shite food, you know, the heavy takeaways and the fast food stuff. The energy you actually get from that, and then what it takes the body to convert that to energy. A lot of the time there's like a net loss. So actually that's why a lot of you feel tired after a big takeaway, or you've eaten like 3 McDonald's. You know, you feel exhausted because your body's exhausted, basically converting it to fuel that you can actually use. That's why we eat, is to generate fuel. So when you take that stress away, that stressor of the digestive process and everything needs to happen, then, and especially when you're putting in, you know, clean foods, then you get a net gain. And if you add that to breath work and you add that to the spiritual practices, we had a class in here last night, Boys Club, and the meditation was just incredible. There's something about the receptacle, i.e. the conscious physical body, me being cleaner, even after, this is day 2, so even after being a day, I eat clean most of the time. I love bread. Bread's my big thing. You know, if I get the right type of loaf, the right type of flour, none of the kind of loaf you would buy for the supermarket, but I get the right, like, proper bread, real bread. That would be my go-to, West of Scotland boy, and I've been plant-based whole food forever now. It feels like maybe 12 years, possibly. When was that, 2000? So 11 going on to 12 years I've been plant-based whole food, vegan. Again, just because of inflammation and how it made me feel when I started it, and then the benefits of it in terms of, you know, how I don't feel, you know, the indigestion issues, or I've never had acid indigestion once since I switched onto this diet. And I tried loads of diets, you know, I really did. I'm not standing here with vegan placards and like save the animals and all that kind of stuff, which is more of a thing for me now, if I'm honest. The consciousness of animals. I saw the wee baby calves yesterday driving down to the Falls of the Clyde when I took Murphy, and how somebody can eat that, you know. And one of the lads last night was talking about a lamb's heart, and my heart sank. You know, the thought that you could eat something like that is just interesting. But that wasn't my intention when I started the diet, you know. So I'm eating clean most of the time, or compared to like most people, really clean. But there's levels to that as well. And these 5 days where I'm really like going, it's like as good as I can go, you know, like full in. Then straight away last night in the meditation, and my energy levels. I felt ecstatic. I felt ecstasy at certain points. Not just in the meditation, at certain points during the day, I really felt this like almost like a real, the clarity's there, but the life force, and what you're getting from the food, what you're getting from the fuel, which is real food, incidentally. It's the only food that there's meant to be. It's not meant to be made in a factory and bloated with all these different colours and kind of different ingredients that make it taste good and provide, next to nothing in terms of nutrients and minerals and all that kind of stuff. But actually just they look good and they hook you in with the addictions, with the different, the shite they put in them. So when you switch away from that completely, it's life-changing, it really is. It's incredible what it will do for you when you move to whole foods, and then when you switch it to juice as well, because there's no stress on the body. So I'm feeling absolutely fantastic just now. There's a lot of really good stuff going on within the Vortex, and it's a great timing for this one. Number 50 is going to be talking about Father's Day, which was on Sunday. Here in Scotland, we're kind of third of the way through June at the minute, and Father's Day, again, I don't really watch anything or see anything that's going on in the world, so I never even knew until a couple of days before it when my wife mentioned, like, what would you fancy for Father's Day? What do you fancy doing? And we had a great day. It was a fantastic day, and it was interesting, the week leading up to it, the people that I worked with, and some of the message I received from, places I wasn't expecting, and how that fed into Father's Day itself, and again this work, and when you go inside and you get into your heart, and the way that I do twice a day, every single day, working, holding the classes, but I'm also getting my own inspiration through that as well. I'm being in alignment myself with service to others by holding as a basically as a bridge, hosting and holding these meditations that I get taken care of in a different way, and the inspiration and the information and the downloads that are coming in over the last couple of months. Anybody that's watching knows what I'm talking about. It's been incredible. It's been an absolute blessing, and Father's Day was really right up there with the best of them. So obviously the significance of being a dad is huge, especially just now in these times. The world, I think it's safe to say, isn't doing that great. I switched on the news this morning, through my fingers, to see what's going on within the Middle East. The implications of that are huge. It's a crossroads for humanity, isn't it? It really is. It's, as I've been saying forever, with my work with the Vortex, I really believe there's a battle on just now, and it's darkness versus light. That's why this is Darkness to Light Godcast. There's a fight for your soul. There has been for the longest time, long before, I was certainly aware of it. It's been going on forever. And the separation game that takes place within that, taking us away from the light and how what the light is, and what the truth is, and how it's meant to be, it's never been more evident, So when I switched on, I had a wee look this morning to see where the world is, and it's struggling, so challenges for everybody, for all concerned. And this is, when I'm talking about Father's Day and what it means to be a dad. Again, it's my take on it. A lot of people might get offended by this, but it's really my take on it. I'm speaking my truth as to what I believe, how that should be, or how it was certainly meant to be before we fell from grace. I ended up in this place that we're heading towards, possibly, the war that may well end all wars. It may actually end us as a species, God willing, because of free will and the light that's in the world just now. That's never going to happen. But these solutions and again shining a light on the way that it's meant to be, that's what it's all about. When I put the post up yesterday about cleansing, like day one of the cleanse, and the video going out, I can just imagine people looking at that and going, what are you talking about, doing a cleanse? The world's in chaos. You look at Ireland and you look at the Middle East and you look at Ukraine, and America's in free fall, and the world isn't in the best of place. It really isn't, and I'm talking about the significance of a juice cleanse, and it's like what? Who cares? I get that, I understand that, and as always, I think it's important to be solution orientated and solution focused. And the benefit for me, which has become clear today, is certainly last night and definitely this morning, the meditation this morning, was the clarity and the inspiration that's coming through me just by taking away the stresses of the food, so that I can then do this job in a better way in terms of how we can help get the world back to that place of healing and get it back into the light. So the role of the father, the role of being a dad, again, I'm speaking from one experience, and obviously being a son as well. It's no easy. It really isn't. It's very, very difficult to be any kind of parent just now, which when I'm thinking about that, there was before it was just male and female, mum and dad, but that's not even the case anymore, is it? But certainly from being a dad's perspective, in my experience growing up, and you learn for your parents, don't you? That's the thing. You learn for your own father, which for me, I was absolutely blessed, and still am blessed in many, many ways to this day. My dad's still alive and still going very strong. Getting older, starting to get to that bit, but as I'm getting older, I'm 53 now, he's early 80s, so as I'm getting older and starting to make my journey into the next stages of my life, and very much reflecting on Father's Day, whether it's a birthday or Christmas or my mum's birthday or whatever it is, there's always massive reflection. That time in the morning time when I go into meditation, that's a time for contemplation, which is awesome, and it's also terrible as well, because you look back and you think back and that contemplation process, a lot of stuff that comes up, a lot of the time you'd like to change it, obviously you can't, but there's many times you look back and you kind of think, it's like, oh man, where was I at that point, or why did that happen, or especially if you didn't get what you expected or what you needed at that time. Very, very interesting, the whole contemplation process. And for me, being a dad just now, the stage that I'm at, being a dad at 53, my son's 23, my daughter's 21, and great place to be. I think just now for me, I'm loving it, absolutely loving the stage that I'm at, the fact that they're both grown up, still at home with us, still living with us, consider them both to be our best friends, myself, my wife. We've got a very kind of close-knit family unit, and that came from both of us, myself and my wife, learning from our parents. Mum and dad, different times, how they grew up, what they started with, the hard work and effort they had to put into both sides of the family, Jill's mum and dad as well. But different times, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, and real industrial area, of working hard and making money and chasing the dream a lot. That was the American dream, being successful and getting as much money as you could. That's what they grew up in. And my dad was certainly an example of that, so I grew up in a fantastic environment and really blessed by, the dad that I saw, and how he's helped me even to this day. Every single time I see him, he's still trying to help me, which is just an absolute blessing and really grateful for. But as I say to my son, it's all about evolution. It's all about transcending and getting beyond what you see, what they see from us, and what we certainly seen from our parents as well. That's the evolution of the species. That's how it should be. The next generation should always be better, and that can be really challenging. Especially just now when you consider the situation that a lot of fathers, how they live their life, and I'm going to talk about that in a wee second, the sins of the father. But the good stuff in terms of my experiences, before I go into that, would be just really kind of understanding the responsibility of what it means to be a dad. And excited to become a granddad at some point, not too soon, but it's I always feel like often as I get older, then becoming a parent. I was 30, maybe 31 when my son was born, and I talk about it when I take people to that place of what's the best you've ever felt. I remember the day after my son was born, the birth itself, the Wishaw new hospital in Wishaw had just opened, and it was a nightmare. We were in there for probably the best part of 24 hours ish. And everything went fine, obviously the birth and all that kind of stuff, and we're basically booted out the door very, very quickly, which we both wanted. But I remember coming out, and it's like even trying to get the car seat in, and then this whole new level of, it's not just about us anymore, even though the previous 8-9 months leading up to that, it's all about the baby. But the minute you actually receive the baby, then you can't put it down, and you're basically trying to work this out, and it's now us as opposed to you're a family. And it's not about you anymore. That becomes very clear very, very quickly. And I think back often when I get back in and I use my memory bank and my imagination to remember, my memory to remember like the happiest I've ever been, or the most content, or that feeling of just, the power and the goodness and the happiest and most joyful. It was when my son was born, becoming a dad for the first time. The day after he was born, I remember standing in Lanark Golf Course on the second tee. My dad asked me how I felt, and even now when I think about it, it can almost bring me to tears, because I just felt a level of contentment and feeling complete, really, like, really whole, as if this was something very different. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about us, not about me. It's about we, isn't it? That's what they say. And it was very much about us and the family, and then what I became off the back of that, in terms of, and this is where I watched it with my dad as well, with the best intentions, going to attain the stuff for the family, protecting the nest and protecting the family. It's certainly the model that I grew up with, and really blessed with that, So It's difficult when you're young. I was 30 at the time. I was still a boy, even though I'd been doing this work probably for that time, for probably the last 3-4 years leading into it. I was meditating every day. I changed my diet. I was living with intention. But you look back and you think, I was just a white belt. I was just learning. Way back a long time ago, 23 years ago now. I was probably 3-4 years into my journey, 5 years into my journey, and really just kind of try and make sense and make my own way through it, and doing my very, very best. And I was a fantastic dad, I was. My wife was the best mum you've ever seen. My wife is a children's nursery, had it for the last 25 years now. And just, I think the wee girls, they grow up with this dream of, Jill talks about how she had always a wee boy and a wee girl when she was growing up. And lo and behold, that's what she was able to manifest, or we were able to manifest. But very different for boys growing up. I never once had the thought of, I thought and probably hoped and knew I'd be married at one point and a family was like part of that, but I certainly never grew up dreaming about having children and spending time with them, and that's very much something that was obviously possibly just a female thing back in the day. For me it was football and nothing else. I couldn't really see, probably more egocentric, which a lot of males are, just like myself and getting it for myself and doing it for myself without really considering anything else. But when I became a dad, all that certainly changed, and spent the first 18 years of my life like really chasing it, and developed a fairly significant sized business very, very quickly. And after about 18 months, I used to leave here at 5 every morning, still in the same house, and basically drived into the sports centre and get my training session in, and then go to the office. At one point, I had about 70 people working for me. And with the intention to get the money, to be successful, to provide for my family, for my son, for my wife, for newly married, all that kind of stuff. And then after about 18 months I realised that number one, it was a fucking nightmare. I hated it, because after coming out of my life-changing experience, and then realising I didn't really want any of that stuff, and also the series of events that happened to get me to that place. It wasn't all by my own doing. There was a lot of family stuff involved in it as well at the time. But the intention was to go and get it for my family, and after about 18 months I realised it wasn't what it was all about. I missed the first 18 months, more or less, and for many reasons. Number one, because my wife was so good at it. She was like just incredible. She was a textbook mum in every way, and obviously feeding as well, naturally breastfeeding as well at the beginning. I was in charge of nappies and literally like a support role. And there's something about that first stage of your life, where your son's born or your daughter's born, how important and significant it is, for all sides, for them, but obviously for you as well. And as a guy who didn't really know what to do, it was certainly challenging it in some ways. The lack of sleep was a nightmare. For the first good bit, my boy didn't want to sleep very much at all. He's making up for it now, right enough, but the time it was the up during the night. It's like being at war. It feels like the old. I remember the Vietnam movies. There was one platoon, and he's basically at the start, and there's the sleep deprivation, the rain's belting, and you can't see in front of you, and the enemy's coming towards you. It's kind of like that, especially when you're trying to. At the time, I was trying to create an empire. And we just bought my wife's business as well, so there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. And you do your best, you really do. You do your best. As I say to them all the time, I've always done my best. Always. I've never not given every single thing that I could at every single stage. And we were out for breakfast on Sunday morning, and I was kind of going through it in terms of, and I've said this often, this journey I've been on, this healing journey, first and foremost, but the spiritual journey as well, and the journey of, that I was on, the devotional journey to God, then there's a lot of stuff that suffered in ways that would never ever affect him. But me looking back now, because I put so much into it, every single day, twice a day, like the books, the studies, being away, courses a lot of the time, being preoccupied or self-obsessed a lot of the time, trying to make sense of stuff, especially the healing part of that, then there's certainly stuff that they missed out on in terms of the version of me that is definitely available now. And that's why I'm at a great bit just now, because I'm available to them in a way that I've not been able to be before. And I've always been there. I've always took them to school every single day, picked them up from school every single day, more or less, made their dinners like almost every single day, like took them to sports and holidays together, and we don't have a lot of influence outside the family. Never had a big group of friends ever. My wife's my best pal, so we spent all our time, 99% of our time together, and the kids have always been part of that. Whatever we did as a family. So it was idyllic from the outside, and certainly from inside as well. But again, you always look back and you think, I kind of wish that this version of me now could go back and be there for them at their early primary school days, and especially the tools and techniques that I now have, in terms of managing my own nervous system and the cold exposure and dealing with stress, and my meditation practice certainly just now and where I'm at spiritually. That's why, it's so many grandparents are fantastic, because when you're going through it the first time around, it's really, really challenging. So the responsibility is huge. It really is. It's a fantastic responsibility as a parent and as a father, mother and father, obviously. And it's one of the biggest challenges that I face just now, is looking at the world and seeing how easy a lot of the times like a new Wayne can be like an accessory. The amount of people that meet 1 minute and before you know it they're pregnant, and it's like almost like a tick box exercise, and that is hugely challenging in so many different ways. One, because of the longevity for the child and for the relationship, the couple, and especially if they don't have it for themselves. I've always felt there should be some sort of a test, some sort of an examination to see whether you're able to have children, and that would be the ultimate level of control. Maybe that's completely wrong, but certainly some of the cases that I see and some of the stories that I hear through this work about people having children in the wrong set of circumstances, or even being born in the wrong set of circumstances, where a lot of the times the dad isn't there and never has been there, then nothing is ever in vain. We understand that, but at the same time, when you think about the way that it's meant to be and how it's supposed to be, then I don't believe that it helps. So very difficult times. The decimation of the family, the split up of the family, the glorification of sex in porn, and how cheap all that is. I suppose now this time that we're in. I saw the medical medium put up something yesterday talking about sexually transmitted diseases. So it seems to have been, it's went kind of full circle. When I was growing up, there was a whole terror campaign about safe sex and don't die of AIDS and all that kind of stuff, which I think now is absolute bullshit. I think that was all just like almost like a psyop. It's not even a thing apparently. So they say that the conspiracy theorists would say that, but now it seems to have been, it's definitely back to that. And you can't avoid it when you see some of the clips that are on either Instagram or probably that more than anything you put on YouTube. A lot of the recommendations, because of your demographics, you're going to get offered, and some of the things that you hear young women talking about, guys are bad enough, but young women, female comedians, is something that isn't funny. Because all they seem to talk about is sex and how they have sex and the challenges I've had with sex, and that to me is just vulgar. Again, that's too far away from the way that it's meant to be, and easy to see why the world is in the state that it's in. So the responsibility of the mum and the dad is huge. That ability to respond, and you can only do your best. That's the thing with all this. You can only do your best. So being a dad it's a gift if you're in the right place. If you've got your own shit together. I would always say to people, wait a wee bit, don't just jump in and have children. Wait until you get your own shit together. Ideally till you've mastered yourself and you experienced enlightenment, and you're feeling good and you're secure. That would be the great time to bring a child into this world, especially as we now know, the first 7 years of the life, where the brain's in theta, and it's basically in this unconscious programmable state, where it's basically just going about picking up every single thing in the environment so that it can survive in that environment. So if the child is born into, adverse situations with stress and strain, and like the drama and the noise and the fighting and the toxicity, whether it's through the relationship itself, the environment of the home, the diet, of the mum, right for the very beginning, the minute from conception, then obviously everything matters. So children that are born into that, then they're not off to the best start. Talk about adversity, and how it basically shapes you and steadies you and prepares you for the fight ahead. But a lot of children, the way they're born, and I hear this very regular, again because of my wife's nature of business as well over the years, you can, and especially just now, probably more so over the last couple of years, and how that business has changed massively, come back to what it was like not that long ago, and some of the challenges that the children are facing in this world that we live in today. So it's no easy to be a parent, it's no easy to be a dad, it really isn't. But it's, if you get it right, and you understand how it goes together, and you take ownership and responsibility for it, then there's nothing like it. It's such a, in so many different ways, it nourishes your soul, and it's kind of the way that it's meant to be. It's part of what it's meant to be as a human being. So that stuff's all good. Being a son can be very, very challenging. The amount of young men that I know for so many reasons. And I worked with my dad for 35 years. He was called the bear and I was called baby bear, and we were so alike in nature. This version of me was not always the case. The human being back in 1996, I went to Ibiza, and even before that, when I was on this mission to make my millions and become the man, egocentric, driven. And my dad was very much like that as well. He started with nothing, so his plan was to basically own the world at one point, and he did really well. Fair play to him. And the challenges that we faced, especially not at the beginning, the early stages, because we were on the same page. In terms of go and get it, earn the money, become successful, and basically fuck everything else. When I come back from Ibiza and then I come out the hospital over 8-9 months later, then that version of me, in terms of, even to this day, money and striving and driving to become successful and to chase the things, I lost all of that. It's gone. So at that point there was a real kind of shift, and then I worked for him for a long time after that. Up until a few years ago I was still involved in the family business and my own business at certain points as well, so really grateful for all of that, but it wasn't without its challenges, and really interesting and actually a shame for my dad in many ways, because the version of the son that he had, and then what I became when I went through that experience, that guy was gone. So all of a sudden I wasn't interested in the business, wasn't interested in money. I actually walked away from the business 4 or 5 years ago. My mum passed, just basically gave it to my brother. Family business has been going forever. Just couldn't deal with the stresses, couldn't deal with the strain, didn't want the stress or the strain. It was pulling me in the opposite direction of this. And the money was good and it was comfortable, and it was fantastic, but it was too much of a price to pay. So just literally walked away from it after many years and many tears and much contemplation. And when my mum passed, that seemed like the time to go. I helped my mum die over the last year of her life, and at that point the Vortex had been open for a few years and I was doing it for free, helping people for free, and the transition just kind of came up. Almost like divine timing, and I was just able to make the transition out the door and start to concentrate on this full time, so it's the challenges that I see with being a son, and I see this with my son as well. You think as a dad your job is to basically, all the stuff that you've done wrong or the mistakes that you made is to basically give it to your son or give it to your daughter. Less so the daughter, probably it's a different relationship, certainly my experience, very different with my daughter, but that masculine energy, the real kind of, and I understand that with my boy, like you try and tell him to do anything, which I stopped doing a long time ago. The realisation that he's here for his own journey, he's here to make his own way, and it's not my job to work it out for him or to give him the answers. That doesn't work with anybody, especially your own child when they're basically making their way through it. And it's been fascinating to just love him and love both of them, and watch them making their way through life. And in the past there was certainly the challenges me and my dad faced. There was certainly the kind of energy against energy as well, especially how difficult it is for children just now growing up in these times, especially the last kind of 4 or 5 years with COVID, and where nothing makes sense anymore, and especially the amount of times that the realisation of where they spend their time, which a lot of time in the house on their phones, is very different. So it's certainly not easy being a son. In my experience, what I've been through, and it's been fantastic most of the time compared to almost anybody I know, but at the same time, then it's not without challenges. And that leads on to, being a dad, great, obviously the relationship with your children, fantastic, absolutely blessed if you get it right. But this led into, in that Sunday morning meditation, the Father's Day meditation, last week I had probably 3 or 4 different conversations and messages. And I'm very aware of people certainly within our circle, people that I've known for many years now, the challenges of whatever the dad has done, and that can be in many different. There's loads of different areas to that. I would call that the sins of the father, and sins obviously a word that I don't like using, but it's kind of the damage that's done by the dad and the dad's actions, and how that gets passed on and passed down to the next generation. And it's something that I see and I have seen thousands and thousands of times, the damage it's done, particularly to young men, women as well, of course it is, young women as well, even people up into their 60s and their 70s I've worked with, and they'll talk about something that their dad has done, and there's a whole range of that, of everything. You look at the male species, in terms of being egocentric and childlike. Very different for women. Women come through In the Indian philosophy, dots not feathers, they believe that the soul, the mother, the soul of the mother is attracting the baby in. There's when you understand energy and vibrations, the host is looking to attract in the baby, and then the fact that the baby is carried within the mother. And if the mother is biologically sound and she's healthy and fit and able, then the natural state for a mum is unconditional love, and to put the child first and foremost, but before, even right through nature, it's the natural way. That's the way that it's meant to be. And they put the baby first, they put the family first. They kind of step themselves to the back, and that's obviously certainly not the case with almost every male on the planet. Very, very different. Excuse me a wee second. This is my daughter's cup, just in case you think. Whatever. Back to a wee second. This is an orange melon from Jaffa, which is a brand new thing. They must be creating it in a lab somewhere, but it's fantastic. My throat's a wee bit. I feel my throat. I've been talking a lot this week. So the egocentric nature of males, the self-centred. What's going on here? Give me a wee second. Yeah, it's failed me. There you go. Egocentric nature of being a male, just like self-reliant, self-assured, don't need anybody, getting it for yourself. That's very, very childlike. And you see that a lot as people run about this work. They start to become like and this happens naturally anyway, but you start to become, your parent's parent. As they start to regress and move back to kind of childlike tendencies and behaviours, then you take on more like the role of a parent, which is interesting. But a lot of males, and one of the massive challenges we see in this world is because of that male masculine, the way that it is now, is basically the nature of a man, and really being kind of all consumed with whatever they need, their own desires, and the negative impact that can have on obviously their partner, and then many times how that feeds down the chain into the children. And that comes in all different ways. Not being present, not being there, doing their own thing is a huge thing. Just not being there, not being available, because they're basically trying to survive themselves and deal with their own stuff. But also, the current wave of addiction and the challenges we see with addiction on every front. Whether it's gambling, whether it's drink, whether it's porn, whether it's sex, whatever it is, the amount of males that are basically caught in that trap by design, and that obviously deflects their attention and their intentions away from the stuff that it should be tuned into. Back in the day when there was no internet, and there was no bookies on your phone, and there was no drug dealers at the end of your phone, and you couldn't basically eat what you wanted, food's a massive addiction as well, then less distractions, and definitely the whole go to work and then tend to your family, that order of duty, that care of duty and looking after what you should be looking after, that's certainly something that's needing brought back, absolutely, but it's definitely missing. Of course it is, it's missing, and because of all these distractions, cheating on the partner is a huge thing. If they're online and these different websites where you can basically hit a button and before you know it, you can meet somebody to have sex. I sound really old when I talk about this, I get that, but it's kind of where I'm at. Then obviously it devalues, and even the fact with marriage, how few people actually get married now. One, because of the costs, but also I remember a few years back walking through, I was actually doing a wee bit of work, and a big friend of mine, and I was talking about, they'd been about forever, and they had a couple of children at the time, and I basically asked him, like, are you any intention for getting married? And he kind of half laughed and basically said that people for the scheme don't get married, and I'd never heard that before. I wasn't even aware of that, and certainly now, obviously, because of so many different reasons. A lot to do with the benefits as well. When you actually get married, then you lose your money for the government. Whereas if you're a single mum, and you're not basically tied in legally through marriage, you're better off. So at that point, when you start to add all this up, then why would you want to get married? Doesn't make sense. So the sins of the father and the mother as well. The mothers are in this as well. But again, if the mum's healthy and the natural chemistry within, it's very difficult for the mum to turn away from the child at any level, at any age. I see that even just now, where it's like nurture like a mother and protect and educate, or kill like a father, as Jim Rohn would say. You step in and you do the things that are significant. You don't mind a wee bit of adversity, because for me, certainly right and wrong, my children ever get off the path in terms of the stuff that's right. I have no qualms about saying to them, like, no, that isn't right, and be fine with the fact that they might not speak to me for a wee bit. Whereas my wife, that feminine energy is very much, doesn't want the conflict and all the stress that comes with that. Wants to very much be there for them and nurture them and do it in a different way, which is really interesting. But as a dad, the way of doing things, the real masculine energy, and being able to step up to the plate at certain points and do the hard stuff, the things that need to be said. I say to my kids often, like, they're like your best friends, but at the same time, they're not my pal. And they're my pal, but I'm not their pal in the terms of, because a father will actually say no. That's one of the biggest challenges with my son, where I'll say actually no to him over the years. He's got one of his uncles who basically will say aye to every single thing he's ever done. Another one, kind of Disney, he'll kind of call him out in certain things. And since he's been a wee boy, he's always been challenged with that. It's like, because I'll always, if it's right and wrong, I will stand my ground and say, no, that isn't right. That's not the correct way of doing it. How else are they going to learn? Whereas a lot of males that are not in that position, especially if they're not there, obviously, and the mum's raising the child. Sometimes, a lot of the times, a couple of jobs, and the ways are getting raised with their phones and their pals and the internet, and good luck with that. So when the dad leaves, for whatever reason, whatever gets you to that point where they're off and they leave behind, again, the decimation in the carnage that I've seen so many times over the years, the sins of the father, is something that is something needs to be addressed. So no easy, and the biggest part of that is a bit that's right at the very end, which is suicide. That's something I've came across so many times over the years. With suicide, I've had a lot of experience with it, with this work, and it's what's left behind. It really is, and that can be decades later. It can be many, many decades later with the child, and the amount of times whether the child has found the parent in their early years, or at different stages. Many, many times I've heard that, where they walk in and they're the ones that find them. And you talk about the sins of the father and the damage that's done. And a lot of people don't ever recover for that. A lot of people never recover, never make their way back from that. And that's something, with this work, again, always the solutions. What's the solutions? What's the answer? How do we make it better? How do we fix it? That's something that came through on Sunday morning, absolutely. What's the healing process to that? How do we take whatever has happened to us? You walk in and you find your dad suicided. You have grown up in an abusive relationship with your parent, whether it's physical, whether it's sexual. You witness, the dad cheating on the mum, or the addictions, or then that can be really damaging and really difficult to deal with, especially at that age, under 7 years old, when it's an unconscious process. No wonder so many people get daddy problems, as they say. So as always, you see all that, the sins of the father, all the challenges of the dad can leave behind, which is horrible, and it's a huge part of the problem. Then it's like, what's the solutions? How do you fix it? How do we make it better? And that's where, again, it's the healing and the lessons within this work and within this programme and what I'm actually doing here. That's what it's all about. It really is. Very aware just now, of the journey of the soul. And Wayne Dyer used to say, you basically choose your parents. Yeah, but I believe that as well. You actually literally pick your parents. When you think about the Indian philosophy of, the ideology of like the soul's being attracted to each other, then that's certainly seen something that could be a definite possibility. But at the same time, what he used to say is that your children come through you, but they're not for you. Which is really interesting. I remember hearing that before my son was even born, so going back probably 25, 26 years before I became a parent. And one of the first ever tape cassette series that I bought from Wayne Dyer was how to be a better parent. It was like a spiritual principles to becoming a better parent, which I've still got somewhere in an old tape cassette. Now, how I'd managed to play that, I don't know, but it's still there. And listening to his perspective back then, which was like antiquated, the limited level of awareness even he was at that time. I heard bits of it not that long ago, and it's really kind of, as the children come through you, you start to see very, very quickly that they're on their own path, and you start to, that quote of them coming through you but they're not for you, that's something that stood beside us our whole life, of being parents. And that's where, a lot of parents, a lot of people that I work with, especially mammies, the children reach a certain age, and then it's like when they're ready to leave, the mammy gets left behind, and really left behind, because up to that point, their whole life has basically been about serving the family and serving the child, and that's where they get a lot of their significance, and they get a lot of the juice for their life from. And the minute the child leaves, it's like, holy hell, what's left? There's nothing left, and they're basically, what was all that for? They wake up in their 40s, their 50s, and they've basically given the last 20, 30 years of their life, and it's like they get left behind, which is something that, again, with awareness, being a parent, for me, loving them, that's always my priority. It's always love. I never ever tell them what to do. I never ever, tell them how to do it. If they ever ask me for advice, which they don't really, if I'm honest, they they're working it out for themselves. Maybe because I've known about this work, or the school, the skills that they've maybe learned off us on a conscious or unconscious level. But just being there for them, and basically loving them, and knowing that you'll always be there for them no matter what it is. And we've been through loads of different stuff as well, of course we have. But the fact that, the non-judgment, and which is difficult sometimes, but them knowing, I've said to my kids, you will always have a roof over your head, no matter where you are, whatever stage you're at. If you ever need to come back, when they eventually go, but if they ever need to come back, they'll always have a bed to be in, they'll always have a roof and a home to come back to. That's something that I've made a promise to them, and something I'm absolutely, completely committed to. So understanding that they're on their own journey, they're making their own way, they're making their way through this. And just really loving them, just being there for them if required, not stepping in ever and telling them what to do, which can be really challenging as well, especially if they're making mistakes, if they're not in the place where they would like to be, or you maybe know, again, because of this work, and knowing like how they could make it easier for themselves. Always trying not to do that, and always letting them kind of make their own path and find their own way with it is something that's no easy. Dead simple, but it is no easy. Because the whole thing's self-reliance. You're trying to get to that point. Again, another one for Wayne Dyer. I don't know why Wayne Dyer's about this one. I wasn't even thinking about him. But Wayne Dyer would talk about, his intention was to teach his children to become their own parents. How to parent themselves, how to look after themselves, which is self-reliance. Which is what this is all about, the whole thing, all of this work and the journey of the soul, whether it's in this lifetime or the previous, how many thousand lifetimes, or the next, how many thousand lifetimes, please God, no. But, it's self-reliance, it's the direct experience of the self, and that enlightened process, and the reconnection process to understand, what this is all about, and that's the whole thing for me. That's the journey. So the physical stuff and the damage that gets done, and the pain and the suffering, that the parents, a lot of the times the sins of the father will pass on. These become like opportunities. I teach my students all the time about breaking the chains. I talk about the concept of breaking the chains, i.e. not passing it on. So some of the stories I could tell about what people have been through, and what their fathers have done to them, it would literally break your heart. I can still come to tears often when I think about what people have been through. You come the compassion for another human being, but you're in with them at a soul level, and there's a personal relationship. That's really challenging when you hear about some people have been through. A lot of the times because the dad wasn't there, because of a lot of things the dad did. But with this work and with the awareness of all of that, the journey of the soul, and what this is really all about, then it's easy to get caught up in the low self, the ego self, and blame and shame, and then make the same mistakes over and over again. That's the thing, isn't it? You just keep making the same stuff. So many times, and Bruce Lipton talks about this, how you literally become your parents. You turn into your dad because of that first 7 years, because of the programming you receive, and you literally turn into them, how they think, how they believe, what they believe, how they behave, your actions, how you react and respond to certain things within the world, stuff that happens to you. And with this work, and with awareness, then it's all about transcending that. It's all about getting beyond that. And I always say there's nothing in vain, but I always feel, and this is from my own experience as well, the lessons and the advancements and the expansion that can take place, that never ever normally happens unless the other side, in terms of the damage that's been done, or the trauma has been witnessed, or the challenges that you're faced, that adversity. Abraham talks about contrast, gratitude, giving thanks for the contrast. Without the contrast, without the pain, without the suffering, and that's true for almost every single person that's on about this work. Without the pain and the suffering, they wouldn't be here. The amount of people that I now know who are literally enlightened, they understand through direct experience of the divinity that they carry inside of them, where they came from, the source energy that they carry inside of them, and they get it every single day. They live in a different way. They live on purpose. They live with intention. They live with tools like awareness and being in alignment, in alignment with the divine. None of that would ever have happened without the stuff that happened to them in childhood a lot of the time. Different stages as well, but most of it's in childhood. So at that point, the opportunity to break the chains, to transcend the sins of the father, to realise a lot of the times it's like to see how not to do it. When you look at the mum or the dad, and you think, all right, I'm never going to do that. The amount of people that I now know who are very much looking forward to being married and having children, and because they never experienced that in their life, they grew up in a house that was chaos, fighting, and just that level of consciousness with just drama and stress and noise. So a lot of the times it's right, okay, if you can see what you don't want, then there's a great opportunity to then go and do something that you do want to do. And because that stuff has been missing, once you get on about this work, again, that's the only way that I know that it happens. Talking about your childhood, how bad it was, talking about how much you a bastard your mum and your dad was, talking about all the love you never got, talking about the stuff that's missing, that doesn't fix anything. This is my challenge with a lot of the leaders in the world just now, talking about their traumas and how hard it was, and try to make sense of the trauma and try to intellectualise it and compartmentalise it and understand it, at different levels. And I guess to a certain point, it's like, who gives a fuck? It's like how do you get beyond it? How do you take the lessons and own up, in terms of take ownership and take responsibility for the stuff that's happened to you? Most of the time it isn't your fault. But then again, you don't even know that because of, what you're coming in with, your previous incarnations and the samskaras within your soul and the stuff that you're having to work through. So you never know. It might all be perfect. It might be because you've been that role in a previous lifetime. Again, the journey of the soul is eternal, so we don't really know. Very, very interesting. What I do know is, when you can look at it and you can see it that it's happened, and there's not a single thing that you can do about it, and it then becomes a question of, right, okay, how do I make peace with it? How do I get to that place of forgiveness? So that you can get beyond it, so you can basically transcend it, and eventually, when you're able to forgive them, but the pain that's been received by them, then the freedom you experience, the transcendence and what you become through this, and then the freedom that you give them, the amount of times, I can't tell you that people have basically picked up the phone and forgave. It's okay, I forgive you for what you've done to me. Either the mum or the dad, I forgive you. And then the freedom you give them. Because when you look back, most of the time, I don't know what the percentage would be, it feels like probably high 90%, but most of the time, the parents are doing their best. They're not trying to be, they're not trying to be bad. They're not bad human beings. They've just been separated. A lot of the times, most of the time, because of their own life experience where they were growing up and they weren't able to break the chains. So again, that's the significance of this. How do you break the chains? How do you get beyond it? How do you take what you've been given, and you basically turn it into, you take that darkness and you learn from it, and you're able to basically, it's that heroic journey, isn't it? That's what every great film is. It's something happens to the hero, and they're down and out and they're broken and there's no way back, and then they somehow manage to claw their way out of the dirt, and then at the end, they transcend all the limitations and all the kind of stuff that's against them, and they find the answers, they find the solutions, and they get back into the light and they become the hero. That's every great story, so that's very much the case of when I'm working with people, that have been through, the challenges with the father or the mother. Then the self-reliance and getting to that place, and certainly the bridges and the pathway to healing, so you can make sense of that, so that you get to see it for what it was, and the realisation that you would never have became like who you're becoming and who you already are without that, and seeing that they were doing their best, and everything's perfect in the grand scheme of things, there's nothing went wrong. That's certainly what it's all about. It's all about evolution, absolute evolution, and you transcending, you becoming a better version, and not paying it forward to your own children. So then how do you do that? That becomes a question. This is on Sunday morning. This is all the stuff that came through on Sunday morning, seeing it from every perspective. Father's Day and being a dad and being grateful, and then thinking about the people I'm working with, and the sins of the father or perceived sins of the father and the damage that's done, which brought me to tears. It really did. A couple of stories last week and people I was working with. It breaks my heart because I'm at a heart level with them. As an empath, you're tuning in and you're going through it with them. And then always with all of this work, I hope you understand that by this point, it's all about the solutions. How do we fix it? How do we make it better? What is the way back to the light? And really interesting, on Father's Day, I'm thinking about one or two people in particular and the damage that's been done by their dads on Father's Day, and feeling the pain that they were in on Father's Day with their dads not being there, for whatever reason. and just feeling where they were at, and just, some of them, one or two in particular, that of their whole life without a dad, which through no fault of their own, and the kind of, the bits that have been missed in their life experience because of that, the stuff that's been missed out on. Love's a big thing, the missing out obviously all the stuff that a healthy, vital, awake dad would do for you, but even just having that companionship, but certainly that love, not having that for any of your parents is usually challenging. And I'm sitting in meditation, and I'm sitting in Father's Day, and I'm thinking about all these people that are really negatively affected by the sins of the father and the damage that's been done over the years. And I'm in union with the divine, and I'm sitting blissed out my nut in just the most wonderful place with so much love in my heart for all of them, and just intentionally sending them love and connecting in with them, and really kind of greeting with them and feeling their pain, and hopefully in some way helping them shed their pain through that meditation process. The power of intention is so powerful, that's like a silent prayer when you're basically taking on somebody else's their burden, and by sending them love, then you help them to find relief. Absolutely, I know that to be a way. I know that to be the truth. Absolutely, I've seen that so many different times. But sitting in meditation on Father's Day and thinking about all this stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then thinking, that quote just came right out of the blue for Jesus Christ: "I am in the Father, and the Father is in me." And instantly, I just got it in a different way. I'd never experienced it before. Because God the Father is the thing that fixes everything. Union with God, the divine. And really interesting, the whole concept of God being male. Again, that's another human construct, something we can try and make sense of. That life, that source of all creation, that source of all life, the energy that we come from, the universal life force that creates worlds. The infinite intelligence that I would call God, consciousness, the divine. To even think of that, of being the Father, I struggle with that, I really do. But, for talking's sake, God the Father, I am in the Father and the Father is in me, name it how you will, but there was something about Sunday when I was sitting in meditation, in union with God, and the realisation of, when you're in that space and you're in that place of alignment and you're tapped into the divine, whether it's male or female or neither, then every single thing gets taken care of and every single thing is fixed instantly. You experience enlightenment, you experience the divinity that you carry inside your heart, inside your soul, that divine essence that we carry inside of us as human beings. When you tap into that and you're in full coherence with it, and it's inside everybody, so it can be done, doesn't matter who you are or what you're coming in with, but when you tap into that, then all the lower stuff, all the lower ego, self, all the damage, all the perceived things that went wrong, all the traumas, all the hardships, they disappear instantly. They really do, and that's where the healing takes place. And it got me thinking about Father's Day and union with God, and going to the source instead of, particularly for those people I've mentioned that are trying to get this love and this connection with their dad. I believe that the bonds are eternal, especially those that have been taken against their will, or in any way, those that have died too young. I believe those bonds I've experienced with my mum, they bonds are eternal. When you go into spirit, I can connect to my mum in a heartbeat, because I know where she is, I can feel where she is. Now, most people want her to come here, they want those who went before us to come and be in this realm, and that doesn't work that way. So to go to the source, to go to that place and experience union with God, and tap into that and feel what that is, which is love. It feels like love, of course it is. And the healing that took place in an instant, not just for me, but the way it was coming through me and the way I was sending it on to these other people sounds bonkers, but that's what it is. To pay that forward, that real unconditional love of God, and to know that the source, the Father, it made me realise that every single day is like Father's Day because I'm tapping into God, and it made me smile. And it made me realise, that so many people are looking for love in all the wrong places. Again, I say that time and time again, and it's inside of us. The divine is inside of us, and that's why meditation is so important, and that's why it's really important to learn these tools and techniques at this time. Switching off your nervous system, getting out of your head, getting out of the mind, getting out all the traumas and your memories and your belief system, and getting beyond that and transcending it, and reconnecting back into that which is real, back into the heart, back into the source, back into the soul. So Father's Day, for me just now, living in union is there all the time. I'm living that life constantly just now. That's every waking moment, as well as a lot of times I'm sleeping as well. Is about, how my connection to the divine, without even realising this cleanse that I'm on, is all about that. That came through yesterday, very, very clear about, oh my God, the benefits of me being clean, like even cleaner. It's been 6 months nearly since there's been any caffeine. 99% of all the processed stuff is gone. So I'm in a great place, and it's getting used to a wee bit at a time. And then now, 5 days, 2 days in, I can feel the spirit within me. I can feel, my receptacle, my consciousness, my human body is in a different place. So then I'm tapping into the divine in a different way, and I'm able to experience it, process it, and allow that inspiration to come through me in a different way. And the level of energy that comes from that is incredible, and it fixes every single thing that it touches. To live in alignment, which just means, as above, so below. To be in spirit, to be in that flow state. Abraham Hicks taught me that term of alignment. To be like godlike, to be in that state of, inspiration is the best word. To be in spirit and to be inspired, in that way that everything just seems to go okay for you. So Father's Day. Can be every day, God the Father's Day. I've wrote that up on my board. God the Father's Day, being in union and being present, and that constant remembrance at all times of your relationship with the divine. As always, that's the way that we fix this mess that we're in. Doesn't matter what it is, all the troubles we face in the world. This is how we fix it. So very interesting, that whole subject. The significance of being a dad. Significance of being a parent. The challenges we face in this world as a parent. When parents are struggling and in survival, then obviously they can, shit flows downhill. And then, it's easy to pass it on. You can see how the damage is done. But with this work, these tools, these techniques, this program that I'm sharing with the world, then there is a way to make it better, get it back to the way that it's meant to be, and fix all the perceived damage, all the traumas and all the stuff that's went wrong, so you can get it in this lifetime. That's what it's all about, so that's where we're at. Number 50, Father's Day. Absolutely, blessed just now. So much good stuff going on. Yoga Barn sold out. That's the 27th of this month. There's going to be the last Friday in every month is the plan. Really excited for that. The tickets went inside 3 days. That was last Monday or Tuesday. They went in, it was sold out by Friday, so really grateful for that. And the waiting list is now open for anybody that cancels for that date. And the next night will be, basically, I can't remember the exact date, into July, but the last Friday in July, and the same in August. So I'll book it the next 3 months just to see how it goes. With the response we've had, it's going to be the last Friday in every month in the Yoga Barn. So great, a presence in Glasgow, the reconnection, back to the self, back to each other, back to the divine, come and learn the tools and techniques. Just excited for that, as I am with a lot of things just now. Loads of good stuff going on. The programme is just about to relaunch. That's had a soft release. It's actually up and running now. It's getting released to some members of the public. We tiptoe into it. The new platform is fantastic. I've been on that. We've got like our own Facebook now. We've got our own separate space that's away from the social media with the community. We can basically talk about and share the stuff that we're doing in here. A private group. Which is wonderful. The power in this community is what it's all about for me. The power of the programme and the tools and the techniques are fantastic, but the power of the community, what I got last night with Boys Club, with the guys that are coming out every Monday night, it's incredible. Boys Club has now become like an open therapy session, but we're all learning together. We're just basically talking about our journey, and it's not about the breathing, it's not about the cold exposure, it's not about the sauna anymore, although that's still what we do every Monday night. But it's the lessons that are being learned by, as I've always said, your life experience is your greatest teacher, and just watching these men make their way through life with these practices, these tools and techniques, and making sense of their own journey and how the others around about the group are learning from it, and the similarities in terms of the people being on like different bits but the same bit. Everybody's different obviously, but we're all going through similar stuff, so it's fascinating to watch how the group's evolving. So really excited for so many different things, and just blessed, really blessed, really grateful. And thank you very much for tuning in again. Number 50, Father's Day. Take it easy, peace out, God bless. I'll see you all very soon, I hope, and bye for now.